So starting again for the ones that didn't join previously, welcome to this webinar. We would like to present the latest tools that we have in migrating from Confluence to XWiki. We've spent a lot of time in the past years making our migration tools as easy to use, efficient, and straightforward as possible. So we believe that migrating from Confluence to XWiki is now easier than ever. It's certainly easier than it ever was. So to introduce ourselves, I'm Stefana. I started at XWiki as an account manager. I've been here for almost 7 years. In the past 5 years, I've been focusing on Confluence tools and migrations. I'm now a product owner of apps in cloud. My specialty is data migration, especially Confluence migrations, and that's a topic where I offered migration consulting to hundreds of organizations. And XWiki SAS, the company that I'm part of and that develops all of these tools, is the main sponsor of the XWiki software product. And CryptPad, which is our second product, you can also see it in the pad that I shared to see the image for the sound issue. Feel free to try it out if you'd like. At XWiki SAS, we offer a full set of professional services. We turned 20 this year. It's going to be our 20th birthday, to say so. And in all of this time, we have offered professional services to 800 plus clients. Okay, so first things first, when considering migrating from Confluence to XWiki, it's important to know why would you choose XWiki or why would you use XWiki in general. The first reason is that XWiki is a prime open source alternative to Confluence. Probably most of you know this already, but Confluence is a proprietary software, which means that the code is private, and also there are some limitations in regards to hosting, deployment, and of course the licensing of the product. Whereas with an open source product such as XWiki, everything that we produce is public, and more than that, you have much more freedom in regards to where you deploy the software, where you host the data, the configuration that you choose, and so on. The defining feature of XWiki is structure. So compared to Confluence, we have some additional features that we call data structures or apps within minutes, which can be very handy if you need to manage large levels of data that can be labeled or that can have some metadata. For example, in one of our custom clients, they have tens of thousands of historical articles, and to be able to search this type of information, they have a lot of metadata on each article, and then the end user can choose to see historical articles from a certain period of time, from a certain theme, location, and so on. Same would apply, for example, on documentation networks or support networks, those being some of the common use cases that we see XWiki being used on. Aside from this particular feature of data structure, we also have more than 900 extensions. This makes XWiki incredibly extensible, to say so. You can configure it to cover your use case as tailored as possible. And last but not least, XWiki is very safe, scalable, and reliable. It's being used on very large systems. For example, Amazon has their technical documentation done with XWiki, with tens of thousands of documents. Same for Lenovo and many other very large clients from multiple industries. So as mentioned in the beginning, I will now present the improvements that we introduced in this year compared to the state of the migrator from autumn last year. So we didn't really take any sort of break when it comes to Confluence migrations. Since Confluence announced their change in strategy, we did receive more requests than before to migrate from Confluence to XWiki. Last year, we introduced our new migrator called Confluence Migrator Pro, which most importantly allowed you to import multiple spaces at once, and it was also much quicker than the tools that we had previously. And in the last months, we introduced significant performance improvements that result in less migration time. One of them, for example, is the fact that if before we were importing pages in a flat hierarchy and then moving them to the right location to the same hierarchy that they were in Confluence, now, due to the wonders of our developers, we were able to import directly into the correct location. Other improvements were done in the way in which the Confluence package is read, the entities XML file, and many other improvements in this regard. Secondly, we automatized all the prerequisites that we could, aside from the memory dedicated to JVM. If you tried the tool previously, you may recall that we had quite a long prerequisites list about disabling some listeners, looking at the Solar queue and some others. Now we do that automatically. When you start a migration, those are automatically done. And of course, you are advised to restore the standard configuration after all migrations are done. Thirdly, we now have many more configurations and flexibility when it comes to what we import. For example, you can now choose to import all of your data and then at the end import only permissions. You can also import only users in one migration and then import data, and many other kind of arrangements that we will see during the demo. Then we created a report of macros. We see that very often when discussing compatibility or what should we expect in terms of the change management of changing from Confluence to XWiki. So one big question is the macros. If you're using many macros in your Confluence instance, it would be very useful to know what macros are supported in XWiki, in the sense that they will appear in the same way in XWiki, or you will be able to use them in the same way. So we now have a report for this on the migration page. We have improved the way in which we handle permissions and links. That was also quite a complex issue, but now we're able to successfully migrate both space level and page level migration permissions for groups and users. And finally, we continue to improve our UI to make the tool as easy to use as possible. In terms of macros, as said previously, macros are very important when migrating, because they may be tools that the users use quite heavily. So we have continued to introduce new macros or support for new macros. We are making an effort to never just duplicate a macro, but actually do something that makes most sense technically and functionally in XWiki. So that's why some macros were created from scratch, whereas others, if there was a functionality that we already had in XWiki or a similar functionality, we converted Confluence macros into XWiki macros. In terms of new macros that got support, we now have excerpt family and multi-excerpt family as well. Live search and page research, children, math inline, and math block. And also on the recently updated view file, column, panel, and expand, we had some significant improvements especially for usability of those macros. Okay, last step before actually seeing a migration. When considering migrating from Confluence and XWiki, we need to have some prerequisites in place to have success in this regard. So first, we of course need a deployment of XWiki of your new system. As mentioned previously, XWiki being an open source software and a software where we don't want to enforce any sort of vendor lock-in or data lock-in, You have the full freedom in deciding how you want to deploy your XWiki instance, where to host your data, and again, what configuration you wish to choose. We also have a very stable cloud system that is used by hundreds of clients. So you can also choose the cloud system for your deployment if you'd like to not have the hassle of deployment and maintaining that. On the cloud system, we offer automated upgrades every year and also daily backups. So that's a significant advantage. Again, if you don't want to concern yourself with the deployment of your system. But even if you choose cloud, there's no vendor lock-in. If at any point you wish to move to on-premise, or if you wish to stop using certain features and services, you have that freedom. Then, aside from the deployment and, of course, setting up an instance that has enough storage and memory allocated to JVM, you would need to decide upon users and authentication method. This is actually one of the main concerns that we look into when offering consulting services for Confluence clients. We see a lot of use cases where either the customer had maybe one authentication system on Confluence and they would like to set up a new authentication system in XWiki, or they had Confluence basic authentication and they would like to set up an LDAP or an SSO system. So all of that is possible. It would just be, we would just advise that that is considered from the beginning, so that you can have, again, a decision made beforehand and the system set in place before starting the migration. So something that can be tested and improved in this regard. Thirdly, you would need to have admin access to your Confluence instance or an XML server backup. We will see in the demo what are the methods to export from Confluence. Using our tool, you don't require we don't need to use any sort of API with Confluence. You would just need to export that data. And then it's very wise to decide in the beginning what are your expectations in terms of the retention of history and other metadata. So we are able to migrate not only pages, but also attachments, comments, history, so all the versions of a page. Also, data such as creator and last editor are migrated. And more than that, we're also able to migrate archived pages, blog posts, tags, and others that we'll see right now during the demo. So it's important to, again, to list this so that you would know what configuration you'd like to choose when importing, and you would obtain the result that you wish. For example, if you have a Confluence instance that was quite old and you don't wish to migrate all the versions and you just want the last version, then you can choose that. Or if you want to, again, to migrate all the versions, you can also choose that. We just advise making a decision in this regard. So yeah, to answer Patrick right now, you can choose either to migrate all historical versions or not of a page. And finally, probably the most time-consuming one, we need to look at extensions and macros. So in Confluence, there are not only macros, but also plugins. Usually, most of the functionalities that exist in Confluence exist in XWiki as well, and the other way around. However, as said previously, we never intended to be a copy of Confluence, so there may be some plugins or features that don't exist in the exact same manner. For example, we see quite some interest in Komala workflows and the scroll versions features. For those, for example, those are plugins that exist in Confluence done in a certain way. And in that situation, we consult the client on that, and we identify the best solution, which can be either creating something custom so that we have the exact same feature and the data is migrated in the exact same manner, or we advise using a standard feature of XWiki. So in terms of plugins, it's usually treated case by case. In terms of macros, we have on our documentation on the store in the Pro macros, we have a list with the macros that you will find in Confluence that are currently supported in XWiki. So that means we have a list of macros that when imported into XWiki will display the same and will have the same functionality. We're updating that list, but you can also double check with us if you have any doubts about certain macros. I'm also going to paste right now the full list here. Yes, so here you will find the list of all the macros that will be included in our resources, but just if you'd like to take a look in the meantime. All right, and now the most waited moment probably, the live demo. So there are multiple features and improvements that I would like to show, not only in terms of the migration from Confluence, but actually also in XWiki. So I will start with a quick migration on a Confluence demo, on a cloud demo. So this is an XWiki instance. It's a cloud demo of 15.10.10. This is the most recent recommended version, so the version that we recommend for production usage. This is just a standard instance. There were no configurations done here. I have an admin account that is set to be advanced. It's very important to make sure that your user is advanced before starting any migration. That will be configurable in your user profile, because in this way you will be able to see the logs of the migration. So first things first, we need to install the applications that we need. We are going to go to extensions. They're already installed here, but just for demo purposes. So when we search for Confluence, we already see the Confluence Migrator Pro. The Pro macros, which is the package that contains the macros that we see commonly used in the context of Confluence migrations, and the Task Manager application. The Task Manager is an XWiki native application that was improved to also support tasks imported from Confluence and have a similar user experience. For example, the way to insert a task inline using a shortcut and other improvements like this. So these are the three applications that we will need. And if you intend to import blogs as well, you will need to install the blog application as well, which is another XWiki native application. Now going to the Migrator. So this is the Migrator Pro homepage. Now in the Prerequisites section, we just have the JVM memory here. We can see that this prerequisite is met for this instance. The other prerequisites that we used to have before, as mentioned previously, are now hidden because they're done automatically. Then we can choose the export package that we want to import. And here we need to, again, kind of make a strategic decision to say so about this migration. In Confluence, you can either export the whole backup and then either upload and import the whole backup into XWiki, or run multiple migrations on the same backup. So for example, if in your backup you have 100 spaces and you are migrating one team at once, you could do the full backup, migrate first only the spaces that the first team use, then invite that team to XWiki. They would use the instance, give your feedback, maybe modify the pages. Then when you're ready, migrate the content from the second team and so on. That's one option that we see used quite commonly. Or again, you can just import the full backup at once. You just need to make sure that you have enough resources on the instance. Or you can also choose to export each space one by one and import it into XWiki. In terms of the export method in Confluence, so this is a demo instance that we have for Confluence. To export just one space, you would need to go to space settings, and here in export space. Okay, here you would need to select XML export, and then you can choose to either export the whole space or just select a couple of pages to export and then import into XWiki. This can be particularly useful if you did your migration, but you just want to update a couple of pages. We do support overwriting pages now, so if you have a page that was modified in the meantime on the Confluence side, you can import only that page or a group of pages and import them again into XWiki. So again, that's one option. Alternatively, you can obtain the XML backup, which should be found in also in your administration. So here in Backup Manager, you can create a backup for server, and you can choose if you want to backup attachments or not. Generally, they are backed up too. So those are the ways in which you would have to export from Confluence. Here, we already have one backup export without attachments. And then here we have a single space export. Okay, aside from the fact that you have to export your package from Confluence, there are multiple ways in which you can upload that package or use that package with XWiki. So you can either upload that package into XWiki, so it will be uploaded as an attachment, or you can select the export directly from the server. So if your XWiki instance is on a server that has access to the directory where the Confluence export is, you can select the select from server option, define here the path, and XWiki will take the data directly from your server. As long as we already have these two uploaded, I will just use one of them. And another thing to mention here before doing a migration is the fact that we have introduced the option to remember the configuration from a previous migration. So we now offer the option to configure exactly what you want to import. But if you plan to run multiple migrations one after the other, it may not be that convenient to redo the same configuration every time. So you can now decide to use the default parameters that we have in this migrator, the ones used during the last migration, or the ones used on a certain migration that you already did before. And finally, you will have the list of the migrations that are already executed and the list of macros that were imported so far. So this is everything that we find on the Migrator homepage. Now to actually run a migration, I'm going to select the backup package just to demonstrate a certain screen. So let's call it demo backup. Okay, and here in the migration options is where we have the whole magic of the configurations. Again, there are some default values that we have put, but you can change them depending on what you want to achieve. Taking them from the top, you can decide if you wish to import archived documents and spaces or not. If you wish to import attachments, in this particular case, no attachments will be imported because I'm using a backup without attachments for this specific migration. You can list here the base URL from your Confluence instance so that absolute links are converted from Confluence to XWiki. So let's also fill that in as well here. Okay, so here is where we insert the URL from our Confluence instance. You can define your blog space name, default is blog. You can decide if you wish to import blog posts or not. The cleanup mode is the moment when the temporary files produced when parsing the Confluence package are deleted. We recommend leaving it to async, but you can also choose to not do any cleanup until you and then do that manually after you know that you have finished all migrations, or do that with the sync option. Then this configuration is also one that we don't recommend changing that much. It's if you wish to import all the contents found in the Confluence package. This is usually the one that is left to default true, and then you specify exactly which ones or what type of content you want to import from the other configurations, such as import blog posts or not. You can decide if you want to use the standard name validator from XWiki. If XWiki conversion is enabled, the configuration right here. Then, very important, if you are migrating groups, users, and or permissions, you can choose to map Confluence group names between XWiki and Confluence, or between Confluence and XWiki. There are some default groups in XWiki and some default groups in Confluence. Usually it doesn't really make sense to recreate all the groups that existed in Confluence. You can just map them to the XWiki ones. For example, Confluence users is equivalent to XWiki's XWiki all group, and Confluence's site admins and administrators is equivalent to XWiki's admin group. So if you want, you can map those groups to the XWiki standard ones. If not, you can choose to leave them as they are and import all the groups that you had from Confluence into XWiki. Again, this relates to how you wish to handle in general authentication and group handling in your XWiki instance, if you want to change anything compared to how it was in Confluence or not. Import history allows us to decide if we want to import all the versions of a page or just the last one. So it being set to true, it means that we're going to import all the versions of a page. Set to false, it means that it will import only the latest version. Then the import non-blog contents. This is useful if you wish to import only blog posts. We introduced this configuration because we saw some customers and we saw this need that people have migrated their data. Then at some point we introduced the support for blog posts, and the blog section being the one that is very often usually updated, had to be updated at the end. So that's why if you would set this parameter to false, the migrator will import only blog posts found in that package. That's why this configuration exists here. Object ID ranges allows you to start the migration from a certain point if a migration was interrupted usually. So you can specify the object ID where you would like the migration to start from. Prefix macro is again something that we don't recommend changing. The macros that already existed in XWiki under the same name. So for those macros, we created kind of an alternative or a bridge macro to call it so. So these macros will appear in XWiki as Confluence _. Again, that's something that we advise on changing. Import rights. allows you to decide if you want to import permissions or not. So as mentioned previously, we are able to import permissions set at global, space, and page level. If we set them to true, then permissions found in the package will be transferred to XWiki. You can define a certain root space name if you don't want to use the default one. You can also choose to use either the space name or the homepage of the space's name as the first level page. Let's say that we set this to true so that we have a nicer name on the in our tree. Then you can decide if tags should be imported or not. In Confluence, they are called labels. So you can again decide if you want to migrate those or not. Unprefixed macros and unknown macro should not be changed. They are related to the ones mentioned previously. Same as we do for groups, you can also map users. So if you have, for example, the John Doe user in Confluence and the same user already exists in XWiki as well, you can map the two so that a new user is so that that user in XWiki appears as the creator and editor and has the same rights as they had in Confluence. And that user is not created again in XWiki if you import users. You can choose to produce links to XWiki users' profiles when they don't exist yet in XWiki. If the same user with the same ID will exist, they will appear as links by default. And then, of course, you can choose if you want to import users or not. Let's say that we don't import users at this point. I'm going to show another instance where we already have the users imported. You can also define a certain wiki where the users should be imported into. For example, if you have an XWiki system with a main wiki and multiple sub-wikis, and you are importing in a sub-wiki, you can choose to create the users and groups in the main wiki or in another wiki that you have set up somehow dedicated for this. Then working directory, this is a bit of a technical concern to say so. So when extracting the Confluence package for processing, there is a default working directory that is used. But if you need due to your configuration, you can also define a certain working directory. And then finally, for some other general parameters, you can choose to skip the space selection screen. So I will show right after we start this that if you're using a backup package, you will have the chance to select the spaces from that backup package that you wish to import. If you set this to true, then you will skip that space selection screen and the importer will just import all spaces. And if you have a package that contains only one space, so if you have a space export, this selection screen will automatically be skipped, of course, to reduce clicks and for general convenience. Then you can also choose to import rights only. As mentioned a bit in the beginning, if you have migrated initially all data, then at some point set up the users, you can in the end do an import of only permissions, usually before opening the instance to your new users. And in this way, you will basically do a migration just to import the permissions and no other content. And last but not least, link mapping and handling in general was updated. We recommend keeping these to their default parameter so that the link mapping is automatically updated, and you and the links from Confluence between pages work as expected in XWiki. We'll see that in the report as well. So these are all the configurations that we have. They offer, of course, a lot of flexibility in deciding what to import at what step. All of these configurations are also documented in the Confluence Migrator documentation, which is also on our store in the Confluence Migrator documentation section. So here you will see at the end all the parameters that I've just shown and a comprehensive description about what each parameter does and if we recommend changing them or not. Okay, so now that we saw a bit what are the available parameters and configuration, due to the way in which we configure this migration, we are basically importing data and so data with history attachments, but this is a backup package without attachments. So data with history tags, permissions, but not users. So let's look at our results. So now that we have saved our configuration, this is the step in which the package that we chose is being analyzed, and this is where the list of spaces is being computed. So in a couple of seconds, we will see a list of all the spaces present in that backup package, and we'll have the chance to select the ones that we wish to import right now. This is the screen. So here, let's just select a couple of spaces. You can choose to of course, see them like this, or you can also search for a space. They are shown here with their space key. And you can also see how many documents and attachments are present in that space. So we made our selection, and then now all of our pages are being imported. You can see in the logs exactly what is happening and if there is any issue. The issues will also be reported in the report that we'll see at the end, but you can also follow them here. Again, in order to see that log, you need to be an advanced user. Okay, now the migration is done, and we have this report page. Here we see all the pages that were imported in their hierarchy. Then in the macro report, we see the macros present in the imported spaces that are supported, and also the ones that are not supported. Then we can see the pages that have link issues. So if we look at this one, you can see that we're trying from the space FOS to link to space test, but because the space test doesn't exist in XWiki and we didn't select it to be imported in this migration, it's not possible to create that link. So that's why we see it in this report. And we also see the same information as a list. And then we have the full log of the migration with the errors that we have in this report as well. So looking at the errors, we see that we have a couple of errors with failed to find attachment corresponding to a certain version. This is normal in this use case because I used a backup export without attachments in order to run this migration very quickly. And then we will also see a couple of errors related to the links if we search them in these logs. Then you can opt to either restart the migration with the same configuration and using the same package, or you can go to the migrations homepage and see all the migrations that you executed. And of course, here you can also see the status of the report on any migration that you did previously. Looking at the content that we have imported, we can see here that a blog was created in our demo space. Then looking at the pages, all information such as content, comments, history is maintained. Looking at some macros, well, here we don't have macros. For example, the children one is correctly supported. The contributors macro has an equivalent in XWiki. For the include macro, again, it works the same as it did in Confluence. And same for all the macros that we support. The standard editing macros also work as expected. Glyphy, Draw.io are also converted. Excerpt, as said previously, works in the same manner in XWiki as it does in Confluence. The math block macros also have very similar functionality, but here we're missing the two attachments. We'll make right away a demonstration with attachments. And the general format is kept. One other thing that is important to see here are the permissions. So on this space, we have permissions set up at the space level. So in order to see if they are kept, we need to go to administration, users, and rights for page and children. To have a comparison, if we go on the Confluence side, in the space permissions for the groups, we can see that the administrators and site admins, groups that were both mapped to XWiki's XWiki admins group, they have almost the full set of rights, whereas the Confluence users one, which was mapped to XWiki all group, has the right to only view and delete their own pages. So in XWiki, that was translated to full rights, aside from scripting, to XWiki admin group, and the right to view for XWiki all group. So we can see, of course, a quick example of how permissions are migrated. And the same would happen for permissions set for individual users and permissions set for at the global level. One other thing that we would like to show today. So on this instance, we did a quick migration to show a bit the process. We can see that the pages are imported and look very similar. The macros that are supported also have a very similar usage. Let's maybe look at some tasks too. So here we have some task list. So this is how tasks are shown in XWiki. You can, sorry, I didn't set up something. So you can also change their status, and you can also see them on the kind of as a JIRA task. And you can create them as a JIRA task in the homepage of the task manager. Then another thing that I think would be very much of interest is how it looks. Are some updates on the on version 16.4.0 of XWiki. So here we introduced the option to reorder manually the navigation tree. I know that this is a feature from Confluence that was quite often requested on the XWiki side. In Confluence, you can manually reorder pages in the navigation tree, and they are kind of pinned in a certain location. In XWiki, we started introducing this feature. As you can see here, the navigation tree is not ordered alphabetically as it normally is in XWiki. But I have pinned here these two pages. The 16th Cycle does not yet have a recommended version, but you can try it out if you wish. This is a stable release, so it can be used for testing, but not for production deployment. But in any case, the feature can be tested, and I believe it's relevant because, again, it was a requested feature from Confluence. The pinned pages will appear in this configuration section, in the dedicated configuration section, and also you can pin them in this navigation panel section. So here I can unpin a page, I can move a page to be pinned somewhere higher. And if I save and refresh, now these are the pinned pages that I have. Okay, so this kind of ends the demo. We can also look into some other specific sections if needed. Okay, let's end the presentation, and then I think it's good to go into the Q&A quickly, as I already see some interesting questions. So aside from the tools that we offer and we have developed, we also propose a full set of professional services around Confluence migrations. We usually advise clients to consider contracting a couple of days of consulting, so that one of our architects and Confluence migration experts will assist them in all the important tasks, such as setting up authentication, setting up the XWiki instance, deciding upon the process for their migration and what makes sense for their use case. Then in terms of hosting, as mentioned in the beginning, you can choose to host XWiki in our cloud, or you can set up on your servers or another provider that you choose. And of course, after the migration is done, we offer full technical support. So we assist you on the daily usage of your wiki, whether it is on cloud or on premise. We don't have any difference in features if you host XWiki on premise or in the cloud. So they are the same features and the same level of support, with the exception that on cloud, being an infrastructure that we handle, we're also able to offer daily backups and automated upgrades. The Migrator Pro that we saw today is included in any gold and platinum support or cloud plans. So if you have a support contract with us or a cloud and support contract, you will have the Migrator Pro already included. Or if you don't yet have any support contract with us, you can choose to purchase the application individually, and then after the migration is done, you can start the support service. However, we usually, again, advise on having at least some contact with an expert when running a migration. And speaking of the offering, we're actually trying to tailor as much as possible both our offering, but also the resources that we provide based on your needs. So I'm going to open another poll if you'd like to respond, to ask you what would be your main reason for considering migrating from Confluence to XWiki, again, so that we can see if there's any area where we can improve either our offering or the resources that we provide. So I'm posting this question. Okay, and again, if you wish to respond, we would appreciate the answers. Here are some useful links and our contact. Again, if you choose this in the survey that we will send at the end, you can receive both the recording and the presentation. So we will, so you will have all those links. So these are the links to the documentation for Confluence Migrator, Task Manager, and Pro Macros. All of them can be trialed and also included. They are included in any support contract. You can also book a call directly with one of our account managers. We offer this free service both in English and French. So you can specify if you prefer the call to be in English or French. And you can write us at any time at contact@xwiki.com, and we'll be happy to respond, whether it is about certain concerns of your migration issues that you're facing, or any other matter that you're facing. Okay, and now to start answering some questions. Very happy to see that we had some questions during the presentation too. So I will take the questions from the beginning, but all of them will be addressed. So the first question that we had is if there is a limit to the size of the Confluence backup, and if it is possible to import a group of spaces from the Confluence backup. To start, there is no limit set in stone. The size that will be allowed will depend on your configuration. The largest instance that we migrated so far was 2 terabytes of data. So that's quite a hefty instance, I would say. Of course, it was a migration that took some time, and it had to be very well planned in advance. The largest package that we imported at once was about 82 gigabytes. So those are some details about our experience. Again, if the XWiki instance is set up with enough storage, memory allocated to JVM, then we didn't really see significant performance issues in the latest months. About the import of a group of spaces, yes. So if you import the backup file into XWiki, then you will have that screen that allows you to select the spaces that you want to import, and in this way you will import multiple spaces at once. And I see that the concern of the question was the fact that this person has a large Confluence instance at hand that they would like to migrate. Again, from our experience, yes, it is possible to migrate even very large systems, such as terabytes of data. And about the links, yes, especially due to the improved links handling method, it is now possible to, the links to the migrated spaces function between spaces and are also updated. So if you have imported space A that links to space B, and space B is not yet imported, when space B will be imported, that link will function. That's one of the configurations that we saw, and that we don't really recommend changing, so that you can make sure that your links function as they used to. The second question is about scroll versions include plus macro. So this question comes from the fact that this person uses this macro a lot, and they would need a way to migrate this. So this is actually a perfect question for the issue of plugins mentioned in the beginning. We don't have a perfect alternative for the scroll versions include plus macro per se. It is possible to create something custom. It is possible to obtain a similar use case using a bit of customization. We do have clients that needed a versioning system for which we implemented this. Also, the include macro and functionality does exist, and it is possible to kind of reference a certain history, a certain version of a page. So all of that already exists. In order to migrate a a system that uses this feature heavily, we would highly advise contacting us and describing exactly the way in which you use that feature, and we'll find a good alternative for that. In some cases, we see that it's better and easier for everyone to just create a custom feature for that client, or something that can be generalized well enough so that it becomes a product for everyone. This is something that we try to do every time. So a lot of the work that you saw today was sponsored by numerous customers, to which we are, of course, very grateful. And everything that we produce and can be made in a standard manner becomes available for everyone else. This is the case, of course, for all the services that you would have from XWiki. So if you have support services from XWiki SAS, you are actively contributing to the development of the whole product, which is something that benefits all XWiki users. So it's a way to, yeah, everyone in a way gives back to say so. But to come back to the question, for scroll versions include plus, we would need to look into the issue very clearly, because we do see also some plugins used in Confluence without all the functionalities. So we may say that, okay, creating this feature would take a lot of time, but actually if we see that the customer doesn't use all the features, then we would propose something else. For example, on multi-excerpt, there is a feature in XWiki that allows you to set some variables, and we recently had a customer inquiring about that. Initially, we said, okay, this is a complex feature, it's going to take a while, but then once we realized that that client was not actually using those features, we were able to narrow it down to an implementation that was much quicker and that we were able to deliver right away. Okay, I'm sorry, it's not a very clear answer on question number 2. We really hope to hear from you on contact@xwiki.com, and we will analyze the needs specifically. Everything that we work on is public on our GitHub. So if you want to follow our work from props on the Confluence Migrator, pro macros, all that, it is public on our GitHub. You can see there if any macro that you're interested in is in development. For the scroll feature and the Komala workflow, there's nothing in development at the moment. For the Komala workflows, we did have some inquiries. We're working on deciding what specifications actually make sense to again, to allow those customers to use the same features and have a quick transition. On question number 3 about the live content synchronization. So on, as I said previously, when migrating, we don't use any sort of connection to the Confluence instance. So live content synchronization is not possible at the moment. The way in which we advise customers to make sure that their content is up to date is that we advise customers to make a plan for their migration, as also kind of hinted in the beginning. We usually advise separating the content in teams or departments, announcing each team or department when their Confluence space will go into read-only mode, doing the migration, transferring that team, and so on. Or alternatively, you can migrate all the content at once and then see the pages that were still edited in Confluence after the migration to XWiki, and importing only those pages. Those are the methods that we use at the moment. And about plugins compatibility, unfortunately, it's mostly case by case. For some plugins, we have a very similar feature or app, and you can just start using that application. For others, some custom work may be needed, as it is in the case of the sync version feature. About common issues on question number 4. The most common issues that we see are related to, so these days we don't really have issues in handling content anymore. At some point, we did have some troubles parsing all types of special content from Confluence, to call it so. These days, we're able to make the migrator very bulletproof in this regard. So we are able to migrate roughly all data. So the most common issues that we see are actually related to configuration and setup of authentication and users. The sections in which or the areas where we offer most consulting are in setting up XWiki and all the applications correctly, in setting up an authentication system that is correct, in mapping the users, and then importing permissions in the right way. Of course, we are still receiving requests on certain macros that would be that certain organizations would be interested in having, and for each of those macros, we have multiple options. Either the customer can choose to sponsor the development of that macro, and then the client team will develop that macro in usually a short period of time. That is defined in the contract, of course, and then they can start using the macro. If a macro is already in development, we will inform the customer and we will share the roadmap that we have in that regard, or we will propose an alternative that often is used as well. So the most common issues are not necessarily about the content that is migrated, but mostly about configuring XWiki rights and permissions, and also having a correct plan in all of this migration process. It's important to mention as well that migrations can vary a lot. So we have customers that have maybe 3 gigabytes of data, and they may have just a simple migration. We may have clients that seem to have not that much data, but they actually have a lot of pages. So that may take actually a bit more. We also have, again, customers that migrate in a week, and others that take a couple of months because they need to, again, migrate each team individually. So there's no one recipe that fits everyone, but we do everything in our power to accommodate the customer, not only at the technical level, to say so, but also in terms of organization, content management. A lot of organizations kind of take advantage of this moment to clean up their Confluence instance, and we may also provide some consulting in this regard. So there is unfortunately no size that fits everyone, but we have gained significant experience that we know how to address all the use cases that we face. And that kind of addresses partially question number 5 about the complexity, the estimation of complexity for the migration. Again, it depends a lot on a couple of things. So the questions that we usually ask our customers when trying to help them on the migration is how many pages they have, how many spaces, what's the size of the database, how many users they have, and what they wish to do in terms of user handling. Also, what plugins they use, what are their expectations in that regard, also in regards of macros. And then based on that, we can offer an estimation. For example, a migration of a system that has 20 spaces, 1,000 pages, and 3 gigabytes of data and 25 users, that will be done in a day. A migration that has hundreds of gigabytes of data, also a new system of authentication to set up or user mapping to do, that will probably take a couple of weeks. A very large migration, such as 2 terabytes, that will usually take months. Not talking specifically about migration speed, because the migrator is now very quick, but also considering all of these aspects of configuring the XWiki instance, users, authentication system, and so on. On question 6 about the process with macros that could be supported by XWiki. So again, about the macros that exist in Confluence, we do our best to have an acceptable alternative without making copies of macros that don't really make sense technically or functionally for us. If there is a macro that is not yet in the supported list and you are using it in your Confluence instance, we will either propose an alternative in XWiki, and you can choose to either replace the imported macros with that XWiki alternative, or we can make a converter if if a standard functionality exists in XWiki, or if there's no feature that exists in XWiki that addresses the same functional need. Then we would propose sponsorship for that feature, and we usually try to, in some cases, if a feature is very complex, we may also try to obtain partial sponsorship by from different organizations. So again, it depends a bit on the complexity and the need of the client. So if they need that feature very quick, they may sponsor the development. If they know that it's on the app's roadmap and it's going to be there in 1 month, they may prefer to wait. But generally, we will share that information on email, and also, again, the list of the current supported macros is public on the Pro Macros documentation, and the list of tickets that we're currently working on is public on our GitHub, as is all the code and everything that we do at XWiki. About question 7, if XWiki needs a connection with Confluence, no. So we don't need a connection. We just need the person that executes the migration to have the exports from Confluence. That usually means that the person or someone else in the organization needs admin access to Confluence to obtain that export package, either backup or single space exports. About question 8, we're using Confluence and JIRA together. What can we expect for JIRA when migrating to XWiki? So I'm happy that we get this question now. Maybe it's a good moment to announce that we started working on an integration with Open Project, which is a very nice project management tool. It's also open source. We are very glad to have the chance to work with the Open Project team. So we started working on an integration. We will cover most of the most used features. So in the first version of the app, you will have the chance to, of course, connect XWiki to your Open Project instance and display in XWiki tickets from Open Project or a list of tickets. That is, of course, kept up to date. And also in Open Project, you will have the chance to link XWiki pages. So the standard functionalities that we see used between Confluence and JIRA will be there. We just started working on this feature. We're currently defining the best ways to go about from an architectural point of view. But this would be our recommendation at the moment. We really advise anyone looking to migrate from JIRA as well to look into Open Project. And again, I'm happy to say that we will integrate with their product very soon. Probably in the following couple of months, we should have a first version of this application. On question 9, how secure is XWiki compared with Confluence? So one of I know that recently there have been a lot of concerns with Confluence's security and a lot of issues that came to light, to say so. I will share the two security policies. So we have a security policy on the product. And then we have another security policy on the Pro applications, because the Pro applications are developed by a by a dedicated team within XWiki. And the XWiki product is developed by the product team, of course. So when using the XWiki product with the Pro applications, you need to look at both. So generally, as a company, we take security very seriously, not only security, but also privacy. As stated, usually across this, a bit across this webinar, we do everything in our power to protect to protect the data, to make sure that we don't send any data anywhere without it needing to be there. Also, without disclosing any personal data. So I shared now the two public security policies that we have for the product and for the Pro apps. Generally, whenever a security issue is identified, usually a CVE is opened, and we work on that feature. And once it is fixed, it is made public. If you are a contributor to that CVE, or if you are a reporter, you may be included in the conversation. At the client team level or at the service level, to say so, there is kind of a different policy that details as well when we access the data, who accesses the data, and upon what circumstances. So for example, we never store client data if maybe shared in a ticket. If we, when working on the public GitHub, we never disclose any client data, even if that issue was opened by a client, and so on. So again, security is a very serious concern for us. We are making significant efforts at the cloud level as well. We are in the process of getting the Segment Cloud certification. And the other products that we have, such as CryptPad, also take this very seriously. For example, on CryptPad, it's a system that allows you to edit documents in real time, collaboratively, but the document is end-to-end encrypted, which is quite an unique feature for a product at this moment, and is actually one of the products that we're very proud of. So again, the full security policy is described in the two links that I shared. We will share the questions and answers as well with the answer and the links. I just shared the link now to have it at hand. And of course, XWiki being an open source product and having such a large community around it, we may also get security reports from our community members. So not only the XWiki team is the one that is working on the product, but we may also have people contributing with security questions. And finally, we do have people dedicated within the company to security. For example, in the cycle of development 14 of the product was a cycle dedicated mostly to security fixes, and we have a new process for security fixes ever since. For question 10, can private pages in personal spaces be migrated and then mapped to the user again? So yes, personal spaces can be migrated. About there is a bit here a difference between how Confluence handles private or user spaces. So in Confluence, a private space is simply a space that has kind of a different ID, and the user has the creator right on that space. In XWiki, we don't have the exact equivalent, but it can be very easily configured as such. For example, if there is the private space of John Doe, that user and only that user has the right to see their own space. So it was never open to the public. The permissions are set up in this manner. It means that when imported into XWiki, the space John Doe will have the permissions for only user John Doe to see it. And in this way, the equivalent to the personal space is being created. Of course, the user space can also be renamed. You can choose to kind of add that in your profile if you wish, or like that space to be able to access it later. Add it in a quick link section. So you can also configure afterwards in the way that fits you best. But in short, yes, user spaces are migrated, and if they are made so that they are private to that user, they will be private to the same user when imported into XWiki. On question 11, if groups in LDAP still work for space privileges and or site restrictions, how are they handled during the migration? And if we have to map groups if they are stored in an external directory. So if you have configured Confluence with LDAP so that groups are taken from LDAP and permissions are taken from LDAP, you can do the exact same thing in XWiki. We also have a dedicated application for this. It's called Active Directory application. It offers a nice UI for all of this configuration. You don't have to go into the configuration files. And in this way, if the groups have the same name and the same permissions as they have in Confluence, then yes, they will work as needed, as they did in Confluence, and no other mapping or conversion would be needed. However, it is also possible to, if you have, again, an authentication system set up with Confluence, but you wish to change something when importing in XWiki, you can also map, again, groups or users. For example, we see this quite often when clients have a system set up with Confluence and they want to set up another one with XWiki with other usernames for the same users. You can do, again, user and group mapping so that this information is transferred quickly. Okay, for question, and also, sorry, just to mention on the question about LDAP, also XWiki supports users and group import from LDAP. So you wouldn't have to import nor users and groups, nor permissions. If you want to use exactly the same system with exactly the same permissions, you can get all of that from LDAP. Question number 12, is there a minimum required version of Confluence Data Center to perform a successful migration? So in our experience, we have been working with Confluence version starting with cycle 5. That's our experience. I cannot guarantee if versions older than that work or not, but from version 5 upwards, there shouldn't be significant issues. There was an issue at some point on a very specific setup. I think it was a version from the 5th cycle set up with Oracle that didn't really allow export from Confluence. So if you are affected by that issue, it's not ideal. I remember we had a customer that had this issue, and we did manage to work around it, but that was the most significant issue that we had so far with older versions of Confluence. Question number 13, do links between Confluence Space work after the migration? Does Confluence include from a different space work after the migration? The short answer would be yes. So after the migration, if you don't have the page that the initial page links to, that link will not be active. But if that page starts existing in XWiki, then the link will function. And secondly, same for include. When, basically to say it differently, the references of pages are correctly transferred into XWiki. So in an include macro, you would reference to a page. If the page doesn't exist yet, the include will not display anything. If the page appears at some point, then that reference will work and the content will be displayed. Question 14, can spaces be imported to a new structure? For example, if we currently have a separate space for each product version, But in XWiki, we plan to have product with each version of that product as a sub-wiki or branch. So yes, that is possible. It would require just a bit of usage of, yeah, so in this specific example, we would need to set up the sub-wikis from the beginning. So we set up sub-wiki for version 1, 2, 3, 4, how they are called. And then we would need to, when importing, we would need to import into that specific wiki directly. Or you can also import everything in one wiki and then move the pages around however you see fit. So yes, that is possible, even if you, for example, if you have a certain ordering of pages and parent pages / spaces, you can import everything in one wiki and then move not necessarily one space at once, but you can also move parent pages with their children into another wiki or into another location. So yes, that can be very easily done. And it is something that we see happening quite often, because usually people, again, take advantage of this moment to do some cleanup and reorganization. Okay, about question 15, it was similarly addressed before. The include plus macro in Confluence doesn't have a perfect equivalent in XWiki. So this is about the scroll version include macro. So that specific macro doesn't have a perfect equivalent. We can do a again, either a custom feature, or depending on your specific use case, we can look at the functional need that you have and propose an alternative. For question 16, Confluence had delete own, so this doesn't give the permission. So in XWiki, we can share the exact mapping of rights and concepts in XWiki and Confluence. If you have the right to view a page, you can also you can view the content of that page and comments. The delete right is separately, so we don't have exactly the delete own right, but it's a separate right that is specified, same as edit script and some others. So again, the permissions are not identical for most use cases. They do cover most of the needs. If we see, again, a very specific need, such as the need to have delete own, we can figure out a custom solution again. And here I see the answer from Raluca. So Raluca is one of our architects. She has been with us for 16 plus years, and she also notes here that deleting own doesn't really exist, but there is the notion of creator that implies that you have the right to delete that certain page. So as long as the user is the creator of the page, the user has the right to delete it. So if a migrated page has user U as creator, then the user U will have the right to delete it in XWiki, and they will have that specific delete right valid on the page, whereas in order to become the creator of a page, the user must have the edit rights. So again, not exactly the same system as in Confluence. And thank you, Olga, for the answer on this. For question 17, for the new feature of being able to recognize the sequence of topics, would imported Confluence content keep its sequence, or do we have to manually rearrange all the topics back to our preferred sequence? At the moment, this is not yet supported. We expected this to be a requirement, and again, it was requested that this is something that is requested by Confluence users. At the moment, the migration of the sequence of the pinned pages is not migrated. but again, it can be implemented if we see high enough interest in this feature. There are some situations where it may not be worth doing a development for one thing, but for very, very large systems with a lot of nodes that have a lot of pages set up, it may make sense to do something automatically. So again, if we see enough interest for this feature, we will include it in our roadmap sooner than later. And question 18, can we import comments from Confluence, footer comments and inline comments? Yes, so both types of comments are imported into XWiki. They are both displayed in the comments section of XWiki at the end, kind of the comments tab next to attachments and history and information. And also, in XWiki, we have the concept of annotations that allows you to highlight a section of a page and comment on it, and then also reply and so on. And annotations are also shown then in the comment section. The inline comments are not mapped to annotations in XWiki because they're not exactly the same concept. We did look into that at some point, but decided to keep both types of comments in the dedicated comment section for the moment. But yes, all the comments are migrated. Okay, and I think this would end our Q&A. Sorry, I'm just checking again because there was some. Oh no, okay, they were included in the list. Okay, thank you again for the people that included them in the shared notes. Okay, so this would conclude the Q&A section. Of course, we don't have to say goodbye forever. We do hope to hear from you on our email addresses, or we hope that you'll schedule a call if you'd like us to look at your use case. We hope to be in touch. Again, we try to accommodate any use case. We're very proud to have a professional team that has seen hundreds of Confluence migration use cases, and that is able to address each of them to the best of in the best interest of the customer. And finally, if you'd have just a couple of minutes, we would really love to get your feedback on this session. Again, we try to improve every time and make content that is actually useful. So we have both in the shared notes and on the chat a survey, a feedback survey for today's webinar. So if you'd like to fill it in, we would again highly appreciate it, and we'll take your feedback into consideration for any future sessions. And again, you will also receive the presentation, webinar output article, and video recording in a few days on your email. Okay, so then I think it's time to close for today. Again, thank you so much to everyone for joining. It was amazing to see so much interest for this topic. We hope we'll be able to help everyone with their transition and their transition to an open source software. And again, we hope to stay in touch. Thank you so much and have a wonderful evening.